Shades of Star Trek in Surrey. From the Vancouver Sun, October 26, 1974. For the past 10 days, 11-year-old David Knutson of Surrey has kept the biggest secret of his life locked inside his Kodak Instamatic camera. On October 15th, the freckled-faced grade 6 student snapped a picture of what he is convinced was an unidentified flying object. A round, silver-colored craft that made a soft buzzing sound outside his 10326 127A Street apartment. David was talking to a friend in the St. Helens apartment complex when he said he noticed two RCMP officers standing in the building's parking lot, pointing in the sky towards the east. It just went round and round in a circle, up and down, and then took off super fast in the sky, David said in an interview today. The UFO shot he took was the first picture on a 20-picture roll, and David's father, Harold, a construction worker, wouldn't let him develop it until the other 19 pictures were taken. David finished the roll last weekend and received his negatives Friday. "I wasn't that excited, honestly," said his father. "You know how kids are. I really didn't believe it. But then I saw the picture, and it was so good." The color snapshot, taken at 4 p.m. after David returned home from Old Yale Road Elementary School, depicts a circular, almost black object with a sharp but narrow blue glow around its exterior. There were no other distinguishable markings on the craft, which he estimated was about 400 feet away at its closest point. The whole episode lasted only 3 seconds, according to David. RCMP Sergeant Arnold McPherson said today he didn't know the names of the officers David claimed to have seen watching the object. No UFO reports were filed by anyone at the police station, and no one had made any mention of sightings, he said. Knutson described his son as a boy with an interest in UFOs. David said he had been reading library material on the mysterious craft, but swears the October 15th sighting from his kitchen window was authentic. "It wasn't no round airplane, I know that," he said. A blazing white, unidentified flying object, which was described as roaring like a jet aircraft, was reported by an RCMP officer in Turner Valley, Alberta, 2 days before David claims his UFO appeared in Surrey. David's father says he doesn't know whether to change his skeptical opinion about UFOs. "David isn't someone who makes up stories," he said. "You know, people always talk about this type of thing, and there are a lot of sightings. You just can't rule it out completely." David was unclear about the UFO's size. He said it was roughly 50 feet in diameter, but that its super speed prevented him from being sure. The only light he saw was the sun gleaming off the craft, he said. David has had a difficult time convincing his classmates and teacher that he saw a UFO. He plans to take the picture to school Monday. "I believed in them before, and now I really believe in them now," he said. More saucers seen by local spotters. From the Richmond Review, November 22nd, 1967. Fear of ridicule and suspicion restrains Richmond residents from admitting to sighting unidentified flying objects. But a recent story in the Review brought out a rash of reported incidents. Given courage by the revelation on October 18th of Mrs. John Callan, 943 No. 3 Road, that she, her husband, and the next-door neighbor had seen an unidentified flying object hovering over Richmond, 3 more residents have admitted that they too have seen objects but were afraid of being thought kooky if they had said anything. The first and largest of the Callan sightings occurred May 13th, when they saw a large object traveling parallel to No. 3 Road and could hear a noise from it. Late in July, about midnight, 15-year-old Ingrid Mravenock, 1305 Blundell Road, got up to let the dog out. "I was staring out the window and the door, waiting for the dog to come back, when I saw something that was just like a light going on and off. It was a little bigger than a star and brighter. and it was over top of that house on the right across the road. It came over and behind the tree at a steady pace, then stopped to the left of the tree. It blinked on and off 3 times, then 2 times, then stopped. It was there, then all of a sudden it disappeared, just as though you had turned off the lights or something. There was a full moon that night, and the object was in the southwest. An open field is to the east of where she saw it. Sitting in the kitchen of a house in the 800 block on Piggott Road, Bob Thomas, a review staff member, heard a friend, Barry Robinson, say, "Look at that, you guys, there's a flying saucer outside." Sure, they kid, but he got more excited and said, "I'm not kidding, look." They saw an object bigger than a light on an airplane, but not the same brilliance as a star. About as big as Venus, it was really shiny, as though a light was reflecting on something. It was orbiting around from the southwest like a satellite. Then it seemed to stop and broke its orbit to move quickly straight to the south. At 6:30 a.m. Monday, September 25th, Margaret Delaney, 1377 Blundell Road, looked out the kitchen window facing east and saw a glowing object, bigger and brighter than a star. It was just sitting there, she reported. How large was it? Take the steering wheel of a car. It was as big as that, only in the distance. I was looking up at it. It wasn't round. It wasn't an oval shape. It was round on top and flat underneath and was sort of furry. I looked down to get a drink of water, and when I looked up again, it was gone. I had looked at it for 3 or 4 minutes, and my mother saw it too. The sky was just getting light with the stars still out in the background. The number of sightings go on further, some people not wanting to be identified, but those who have agreed to sign their names to their testimonies feel that the objects are real, not figments of imagination. Surrey students stick to saucer story. From the Columbian, October 28, 1974. No matter what anybody else says, Surrey schoolboys David Knutson and Blair Chornopesky are convinced that a flying saucer hovered over their homes 2 weeks ago. They have a picture of the object to prove it, and they're sticking to the story even though nobody else saw what they did. 2 RCMP officers saw it. They were pointing to the sky, David said today, and there were people standing in the street when I took the picture. They must have seen it. But Sergeant Arnold McPherson of Surrey RCMP said that if 2 officers saw a flying saucer over Surrey, they are keeping quiet about it. No report of a UFO sighting has been filed with us, and the officers haven't come forward, he said. A Vancouver Airport Radar Center official said today that nothing had shown on radar on the day the boys said they saw the flying saucer. And inquiries among the residents of the apartment where the boys live failed to produce anybody who will admit to seeing a flying saucer. Since we saw the saucer, our friends have been teasing us, Blair said. They keep telling us we must have been drinking and things like that. But we saw a flying saucer and nobody is going to make us change our minds about that. Both boys agreed that the object they saw hovering in the sky was round, silver-colored, and appeared to be spinning at a very fast speed. It just went straight up and disappeared, Blair said. David nodded in agreement. At the Yale Road Elementary School today, David and Blair drew a picture of the mysterious object on the classroom blackboard for their friends. It all began, the boys said, on October 15th when 11-year-old David was leaning out of his bedroom window at 29 1032 6 127A Street, Surrey, with his friend Blair, aged 8, of 24 1034 0 127A Street, Surrey. They heard a buzzing noise in the sky, looked up, and saw a round silver disc circling and maneuvering in the sky above the apartment building. David grabbed his camera and took a picture of the object. When it was developed last week, it clearly showed a circular object hovering in the sky, a bluish glow around the perimeter. No other markings are visible, and there is no obvious explanation for what the object is. David told his father, Harold Knutson, who was skeptical until he saw the picture. Now he doesn't know what it is, but he isn't prepared to guess. Both boys agreed that the object they saw, which was visible for about 3 minutes, was not an airplane or a helicopter or any plane that they knew of. And it wasn't a frisbee or a flying hubcap, because David said, a frisbee or a hubcap doesn't go straight up, and this is what this one did. Straight up, higher and higher until it disappeared. I don't know of any airplane that can do that. Strange glow sighted over Aldergrove. From the Langley Advance, October 26, 1972. 2 residents of Aldergrove were awakened at 4:30 last Wednesday morning by a loud, unidentifiable sound emanating from somewhere in the vicinity of their home. Rising to investigate, they observed a bright light rising swiftly in a southeast direction from their home. Mrs. Marge Kosis and her brother George of 27864 Fraser Highway in Aldergrove reported the incident to the Advance. The light itself, which was seen by George Kosis, was difficult to describe, he said. It appeared to be spherical and was so bright that for a few seconds you could have read a newspaper by the window. Mrs. Kosis reported that it was very quickly gone, but while it appeared to be rising swiftly into the night, there was also a very loud sound as of rushing wind. Whatever is the explanation for the strange occurrence, it was apparently not lost on the animals of this particular farm. Mrs. Kosis said they kicked up a terrible fuss of howling and barking in the presence of the noise and light, and when they disappeared, the animals settled down. Her report went on to describe the weather conditions that morning. It was not yet sunrise, and there was a fairly heavy fog, so that the moon could not have been seen even momentarily. I can't imagine what the explanation could be for the occurrence, Mrs. Kosis said. It was a very strange experience. UFO over Shuswap? Visitors watch strange light. From the Salmon Arm Observer, August 9th, 1972. UFO over the Shuswap? It's a possibility, but the people who saw something unusual on the weekend aren't prepared to say so for sure. The report on the sighting was made by a Victoria couple currently visiting with a local family in the South Broadview area. The Victoria man appeared a little reluctant to discuss the sighting, but did say he saw something and it was different. His wife told the police that at about 3 a.m. Sunday, she and her husband watched a moving object for the best part of an hour. She described it as a bright light over the mountain that appeared to float down at times, then to rise again and to move in circles. She said it appeared saucer-shaped and streaks of light were coming from it. Sometimes the light was quite bright, she added, and at other times, as it moved, the light was more dim. The couple stated a neighbor had seen a similar object on a previous occasion, but had been reluctant to report it for fear of public reaction. There have been occasional reports here, as in other areas over the years, of unidentified flying object sightings. The most recent, 6 or 7 years ago, involved a bright fireball light accompanied by loud noise and resulted in a search for a meteorite which, it was felt, might have struck Earth north of Seymour Arm. Nothing was ever found. Area visitor watches strange light in sky. From the Salmon Arm Observer, November 8, 1972. Another incident of an unusual light in the Shuswap skies was reported to the Observer this morning by Paul Critchett of Chicago, Illinois, who is currently staying with relatives, the Helper family, in the White Lake area. Critchett told the Observer he was sleeping in a van and awoke about 3 a.m. this morning to see the light, which, from his viewpoint, looked to be toward Shuswap Lake in the vicinity of Bastion Mountain. Critchett described it as a light similar to that which might be produced by a spotlight, perhaps a little brighter in the center than at the edges, but not too bright. Not bright enough to take a picture. He said the light was traveling in a clockwise, oval-shaped pattern, which gave the impression it might have been a circle if I'd been directly under it. The complete pattern took up about a quarter of a mile in the sky, he said, with one full revolution around the pattern every second or 3/4 of a second, as nearly as I could tell. He said the light gradually shifted to the east out of his line of vision. He got up and moved and could see it again through the trees. Then it returned to the section of the sky where I had originally seen it, then disappeared. Critchett said he tried to find a logical explanation for the light, but was stumped. If it was a searchlight, he said, I'd surely have been able to see the beam. The same with a train headlight, and besides, the train would have had to have been climbing about a 45-degree grade. I don't know what it was, but I saw it. Mystery object seen over city. From the Prince George Citizen, June 27, 1973. An unidentified flying object was sighted by a number of Prince George residents Wednesday. Wally West said he and a friend saw the object in the sky about 11:30 p.m. and at first thought it was a huge helicopter with lights inside. He said that after a while they realized it was not a helicopter. He said the UFO traveled from the west to the east and was visible for a period of about 4 minutes. West said that at one point the object stopped, hovered, then went straight up and disappeared into the atmosphere. West is a licensed pilot, and he says he knows from experience that aircraft just don't do that. West's version of the UFO sighting conformed to stories told by other residents who say they saw the extremely bright ball of light. Ron Mengerink, a radio operator at the airport, said he received a number of calls shortly after 11:30 p.m. from people asking about the object. He said he scanned the sky, but was too late to see it. Mengerink said he then called Vancouver Centre and asked the controllers if there was a record of aircraft in this vicinity, but found none were scheduled to be here. He said there was no aircraft under the local airport's jurisdiction in the area either. Radar operators at the Canadian Forces radar base in Baldy Hughes, about 17 miles from Prince George, checked their logs and said they had no record of the object. We have no knowledge of it, but we'll certainly keep an eye on the scopes for it, said a spokesman for the radar station. Another man who saw the object said he was in a car with 4 other people at the time. They stopped the car and observed the UFO travel across the sky. It was a very bright ball of light that seemed to be pulsating at times. It was over the Hart Highway when we saw it, he said. The man, who chose to remain anonymous, said the object seemed to remain motionless for a while, then all of a sudden poof, and it vanished into thin air. Unidentified flying objects moving to Campbell River. From the Beaverton Express, May 30th, 1975. Unidentified flying objects, the magic carpet ride of outer space, might be moving up to the Campbell River area. Mrs. Mildred Whittingham, who lives in the Mission Hill area near St. Andrew's Church above Courtenay, said Friday she definitely spotted a strange object hovering above Forbidden Plateau May 7th. She said it was certainly not an airplane, and it remained in the sky above Forbidden Plateau for approximately 5 minutes. Mrs. Whittingham said it was high in the sky at first, then came lower down, hovered, and eventually disappeared. She said the object appeared sometime after 11 p.m. Mrs. Whittingham said she spotted the UFO the day the Comics District Free Press ran an article on Carol Mortensen of Powell River, who testified to having seen a strange object in the sky over Royston April 30th. Staying with her sister-in-law, who lives on the Royston-Cumberland Road, Carol spotted a bright red light in the sky at about 10:30 p.m. It was coming down vertically and coming quite fast, she said. When it was quite low, it just hovered and then moved along in the general direction of Courtney. Carol and her sister-in-law got in their car and drove down towards Royston in pursuit of the strange red light. They say it hovered for about 10 minutes and then climbed up again, and by the time they reached Royston, the strange phenomenon had disappeared. Mrs. Whittingham believes the strange red object seen by the two girls might be the same one she spotted Wednesday night. A check with the Campbell River RCMP showed there have been no major UFO sightings since 1972 in the local area. While snowmobiling, family sees UFO. From the Upper Islander, January 7th, 1976. A Campbell River man and his family claimed they watched an unidentified flying object from about 100 yards away on the evening of December 29th. The sighting took place at about the 2,000-foot level on Mount Adrian, a small mountain used frequently by snowmobilers along the upper reaches of the Iron River Road. It was the second reported UFO sighting in the past month. Earlier, a Comics Valley resident said he had seen an unidentifiable flying object near Courtney. The December 29th observation was made by Ralph Wiley, his wife Lois, daughter Brenda, and Brenda's friend Bill Moe, 24, of Vancouver. The four had left Wiley's Ocean Grove residence to go snowmobiling in the Mount Adrian area. We had just stopped at the snowline, near the North Island Snowmobile Association shack about 9 o'clock, when we noticed a very bright light across the river about a quarter of a mile from us, said Wiley. He said the light, which they first thought to be a fire set by someone who may have been stranded by an aircraft accident. It was an orange-yellow light, like the color of a car headlight running on a low battery, but it was very bright. Wiley said the light was steady except for a shimmer of a halo which hung above the main light. The four watched the light for about 15 to 20 minutes in amazement and were discussing what action to take when the lights died down and disappeared. It went out slowly, like a bonfire, he said. The group decided to go ahead with their snowmobiling, and he turned his truck around to unload the vehicles, said Wiley. As he was getting out of his truck, the lights appeared again, he said, this time much closer to where the four were standing. It was about 100 yards away from us in the trees. There were 3 very bright lights arranged horizontally. The lights were spaced a total of 100 feet apart and lit up a large part of the forest as bright as day, he said. He said the object didn't make any sound at all. Wiley said he, his daughter, and Moe walked down the road a couple hundred feet to get a better look at the object. We looked back at my wife and could see her face plain as day. Wiley's wife, Lois, said the object still had a halo around it, which gave off a pinkish light. It lit up the area like a sunset. She said she was terrified and had no intention of getting any closer to it, while her husband had a slightly different idea. I was curious as hell, he said, but admitted he was frightened at the idea of getting too close to the lights. They watched it for about 20 minutes before the lights died down for a final time, and the object simply disappeared. The four decided to get out of there and drove down to Campbell River, he said. After discussing the incident at a coffee shop, they decided it should be reported to the RCMP and went to the detachment office. Wiley said they related what they had seen to the attending constable, who listened patiently, and after hearing the story, retrieved a copy of the December 24th issue of a Courtney paper. The newspaper quoted a report made by Kin Beach resident Jim Baker, who said he saw a UFO December 9th above the Island Highway opposite Williams Beach Road. Baker, who was returning to Courtney from Black Creek, said the object remained stationary above the highway while he watched it. It had 2 very bright lights, one on each side, and a string of lights horizontal to the whole craft, he said. Wiley said it was the first time he had heard of the December 9th incident. The following day, he said both he and his wife suffered from sore eyes. "It felt like my eyes had been pulled from straining," he said, noting that they hurt for 3 days following the sighting. Mrs. Wiley said it felt like she had sand in her eyes and that it was a couple of days before the irritation stopped. Wiley visited the location the next afternoon, but could not find any marks in the snow, burned trees, or anything else to indicate the presence of a craft. However, he said he noticed the embankment was much steeper than he had imagined the evening before. For the object to have been at eye level, it must have been hovering between 200 and 300 feet in the air, he said. The Wileys, avid members of the North Island Snowmobile Club, have been up in the mountains several times since the night of the sighting, but haven't seen anything unusual. A check with Canadian Forces Base 442 Squadron, Comics, the organization responsible for air-sea rescue efforts, showed a crew had been out that evening dropping flares in the Bates Beach area near the Comics-Powell River ferry slip. Captain Jack Fisher, Operation spokesman, said a twin-engine Buffalo was sent out shortly before 9 p.m. after a distress call was received from a Bates Beach resident. He said the resident had noticed a light out in the water and thought a boat might be in trouble. Fisher said the plane dropped a total of 7 flares over the area and found some people digging clams on the beach. It was a really low tide that night, and they were out quite a way. He said the plane landed back at the base at 9:30 p.m. Asked whether or not the flares could have been seen as far away as Mount Adrian, Fisher said it's certainly possible. He said that following the dropping of the flares, which are attached to parachutes for a slow rate of descent, the base received a number of calls, both inquiries and reports from both the island and Powell River. He said that the plane generally drops flares one after another, and that from certain viewpoints they could appear horizontal. Asked if the flares ever emitted an orange, yellow, or pink light, the spokesman said the magnesium flares give off a pure white or sometimes bluish light while burning. However, a reflection off the water or cloud cover could create a different color, he said. As a final point, the captain said the flares could appear to die out as they burned up the remaining portions of magnesium, and added the flares, dropped from the 4,000-foot level, do not generally last until they hit the water. Wiley wasn't convinced by the armed forces' explanation when told by the Upper Islander, and said he still believes he saw a UFO. "I know what I saw, and I know it's a lot harder for me to convince you of what I saw than it is for you to convince me I didn't see it." He said he expects he will see something like it again in the near future, and that the next time he does, he is going to be a lot more adventuresome. "If it's a UFO, I'm going to try and board it. A man would come out knowing a lot more after the experience," he said. Well, they're not identified. Bright lights up in air worry pair. From the Daily Courier, January 6, 1976. There is certainly something odd up in the air above Kelowna area. At least 3 people who say they have seen bright stationary lights hovering for as long as 10 to 15 minutes appear to think so. Monday night, 2 of these people who live on the west side both saw 2 very bright lights, which eventually moved together, hovering below the cloud over the lake. Maurice Joblin, 22, said he was in his cabin, which is oil lamp lit, and was watching the traffic going into Westbank. "I don't have a watch, so I checked the traffic flow to tell the time, and it was the after-supper traffic, which would put it about 7 p.m. Then I looked out to the left, and there were these lights, standing still. I called Rhoda Stubbs, 20, and we watched the lights from the lakeshore for 10 to 15 minutes. Then, as we continued to watch them, they moved off in the direction of Kelowna. He couldn't estimate the speed." Miss Stubbs said she agreed, and hoped that tonight we won't see Ogopogo. She thought everybody who saw such sights was looked upon by the rest of the world as weirdos, but she couldn't imagine what the lights were. Mr. Joblin said he was not classifying the object as a flying saucer. But as far as I am concerned, it was a UFO, not identified, and I would like someone to identify it. It was not the landing lights of a plane, although just as bright, and there were no other lights around it, or them, the two powerful lights. They appeared to be below the crest of the mountains opposite, so couldn't have been a star, although I thought of that. Mr. Joblin doesn't like mysteries. He just hopes someone can come up with an answer so he doesn't have to worry about little green men wandering over his backyard. The third witness of lights in the sky is Jude Campbell, 26, of Glen Rosa. She said about a week ago she was driving back home from her job in Kelowna, and for 20 minutes of that drive, she saw this bright light, white with a red light under it, hovering to the left. She went home and then went out and saw the light again, then returned to the house. About an hour later, I went outside again, but it had disappeared, she said. The Federal Meteorological Office at the airport, however, had no sightings recently. Ralph Janes of Winfield, in charge of the station, said he felt the lights were either a plane's landing lights, which can appear to remain stationary for quite a time, or it might have been a star or planet. Some people see those two kinds of lights, and due to the type of weather or some other condition, they look like UFOs. Mr. Janes felt there was a logical explanation, and the three viewers of the lights wished they could be told it. No, it wasn't Santa's reindeer. UFO sighted by Crofton couple. From the Ladysmith Chemainus Chronicle, December 20th, 1978. Walter Brownlow says he never used to believe in flying saucers. Now the Ladysmith businessman and Crofton resident says he does. He and his wife Joan believe they saw a flying saucer at about 10:50 p.m. December 11th in the vicinity of the Fuller Lake Arena. It was like a falling star, but it was going the wrong way, says Mrs. Brownlow. The couple were driving along the Trans-Canada Highway, southbound, and were about even with the arena when something dark and dim passed in front of the car's hood. I thought it was a great dirty piece of gray paper, remembers Mrs. Brownlow. She said the object had no lights on the side, which was then visible, and its shape resembled a piece of paper folded corner to corner. Her husband said the object was blue-gray in color and fluorescent. It scared the daylights out of us, Mrs. Brownlow says. Another few feet and we'd have hit it. As Mrs. Brownlow watched the object, as it rose straight up and its lights, which were now visible, made it look like a rising star. The glowing object then stopped its rise, leveled off, and continued traveling. The couple watched it as they went down the road to Crofton, and as they reached the mill entrance, the saucer made a direct descent and vanished behind the buildings. While Walter Brownlow says he never before believed in flying saucers, that viewing changed his mind. However, Mrs. Brownlow says she's seen an unidentified object once before, about a year ago, and along the same stretch of highway. That object was red, glowing like a fire that's about to go out, she remembers. It cast a diffuse light and did not move like an airplane, she says. Neither Ladysmith nor Chemainus police received any reports concerning an unidentified flying object last Monday, but Mr. and Mrs. Brownlow know what they saw and remain firmly convinced it was a flying saucer. Anyone else with a recent close encounter of the third kind? Thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it. And if you did, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to stay up to date on everything I post. If you want to check out more of my paranormal videos, you can click the pop-up on the top right corner for a full playlist. And if you have your own paranormal encounters, UFO sightings, or any other kind of strange story, you can either share it in the comments, post on my subreddit, r/ihaveaspookystory, or send it to my story submission email, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Maybe your story will be in a future video. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the shadows bite.